So you're gonna go see them?
Well, it's 6 o'clock, time to begin the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting, Madison, August 12th, 2024. And Mr. Secretary, can you call the roll, please?
Scott Baldwin,
Here.
Mark Acosta,
Here.
Nancy Burkhart,
Here.
Rick Ferris,
Here.
Carl Eaglin.
The minutes. Board members, have you all had a chance to review last month's minutes? Are there any additions or corrections?
None here.
Hearing none, we'll take a motion to approve.
Approve and accept the minutes from July.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The minutes are accepted as submitted. Moving on to renewals, we had several. I will just read the names of those who have paid their renewal fees. Angela Tharp, Sarah Libby Mann, Howie and Lisa Cutshall, Kara Fox, Casa of Jefferson County, Kevin and Denise Brierly, Garrett Lehigh, Marianne Bennett, Fortino Miranda, Rebecca Brown, Kelsey Shaw. All these have paid their fees, their renewal fee on time, and have had no complaints about their conditional use. Therefore, I move that we renew these conditional uses.
Second.
And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. They are renewed. There's one, Margaret Seifert Russell. It was a conditional use permit for a folk art and doll museum at 113 East 3rd Street. As of today, she has not paid her conditional use renewal. Therefore, I move that first we instruct our attorney to send her the usual reminder letter, and second, I would instruct the appropriate staff member to contact her and see if she still actively has a museum there and needs her conditional use. That's my motion. Yes, sir?
That property is for sale, and I do not anticipate that use continuing. So, to answer the question you asked Nicole to find out, that property is for sale, and I think is very close to being sold, so I wouldn't expect that use to continue.
Well, in that case,
The motion's still fine. Just, I'm trying to help Nicole not chase that down.
Can we just table it?
I think then I withdraw my motion and I move that we table it until staff determines whether it's still a valid conditional use.
Second that.
And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion passes.
Down. Over there.
Moving on to new applications. First item on the agenda is Mr. Kenton BZVD-24-37, Kenton Mahoney, requesting a variance from developmental standards for lot acreage to construct an addition in an area that's zoned residential agriculture located at 1716 Taylor Street. And would someone like to come up here and give your name and address for the record, please, and explain what the situation is?
So yeah, I'm Kenton Mahoney, address 1716 Taylor Street. So I actually came before this board about 2 years ago, a little under 2 years ago, and you approved my variance for setbacks. When I went to do the building permit, I was told by the planners that the setback was not enough, that I actually need to also have the variance for the acreage of the lot, because the lot acreage is less than 1 acreage. So it's the same project that was approved back in December of 22. It's just that we have to approve it's not a full acre.
Right, and I was at that meeting. And at that meeting, board members Acosta and Burkhart were also here. And we went over the 3 criteria, and nobody had any objections at that time. And as was pointed out, this is one of those odd things in Madison where who knows how many years ago that was farmland. It hasn't been farmland been through who knows what, and it's like sometimes happens in our community. It's designated agriculture and it's not. And it was also pointed out that there were 2 streets platted on either side. And in my view now and then both, those streets couldn't even be built because especially the northern one, because it's so strange. It dives down into a valley. On the south side, it was pointed out then that there's a state park, which never will have any development happen on it, maybe a horse trail. So, in light of all those things, and in light of the fact that this gentleman has been through this thing twice, and he's in a truly bizarre situation, I think I'm simply going to ask, normally a variance, I think personally that that's a big deal, but in this particular case, since he's been through this before, I'm just simply going to go through the 3 criteria and ask if anybody has any objections, just to hurry this along. Well, before I do that, I really should say, do any of you board members have any questions for the applicant?
No.
Okay, you can have a seat, sir. Thank you.
Maybe just also confirm we don't have any public comment.
Well, I suppose that's probably a good idea. Anybody from the public want to speak, for or against?
Thank you.
Kind of didn't think so, but you're right. So the first one, injurious to the public health and so forth. Any objections, board members?
No.
No.
The second criteria, is that going to hurt any adjacent properties' property value?
No.
The third one, will this be practical difficulties? Well, yeah, in my view, yes. Are there anybody that disagrees that there would be practical difficulties in this particular case?
No.
So having gone through this, and obviously just for the record, I can't resist, practical difficulty is this miserable zoning situation that he's in. So I move we approve this variance.
Second.
Can we have a roll call?
Rick Ferris,
Yes.
Nancy Burkhart,
Yes.
Mark Acosta,
Yes.
Scott Baldwin,
Yes.
Carl Eagle.
And your variance is approved, sir.
I will just note, we'll have your building permit ready to be issued tomorrow if you want to come down.
One moment while I go through my paper pile. Next item on the agenda, BZVD-24-38, David Carlo, requesting a variance from development standards for setbacks to allow construction of new detached garage and carport, 747 West Main, Specialty District. Yes, sir. Give your name and address for the record. And what you want to do and what the situation is that you need a variance.
Well, you guys get pictures
Yes.
of my current garage? That garage, I'm not sure when it was built, but I'm assuming pre-1950 or way sooner. Poorly constructed, and really, I think the only thing probably keeping it up is the carport attachment that was added on in the late 1970s. So, this is a project that I've been wanting to complete for the last 20 years. I want to demolish the garage and rebuild on the same footprint. And with the, and here's a picture of pretty much what I'd like to replace it with.
Okay. And we can take a motion to accept that into the record.
I make a motion, we accept the pictures
and we have a second.
Second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And if you'd leave that picture with staff, it'll be in the record.
The picture?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The one you just presented. Okay, proceed.
I happened to walk through the alley and just a block up the street from me, I saw it. That's just exactly what I was, what I was wanting to construct. My garage, I went to see about getting a survey of my property like 6 months ago. And I know the surveyor's been there, but I have yet to hear from him for a completed survey. But I know where they placed the stakes in the alley. And at first I thought my garage was built on the property line. But after looking at the survey stakes that they placed, it's actually a foot off the property line. So basically what I'm wanting to do is rebuild on the same footprint as what I've got, so.
We maintain, I think the picture of one-story structure and.
Yeah, it'll be a one-story structure, maybe a little higher for a little bit of storage
Sure.
up in the rafters, but it'll be a one-story structure. I'm anticipating maybe putting a cupola on top, for a little decoration. I've talked to Nicole a little bit about, I know I gotta go before the historic board. The things that I'm wanting to construct with probably hardy board siding or something like that. The old-fashioned type overhead door, something that's kind of a historical, appropriate, not a new looking garage, something that's gonna fit in with the neighborhood downtown, so.
I took a walk down that alley and looked at your old garage, and I noticed your neighbor to the west has his carport facing east. Your carport's gonna be facing west. Is that what you
Yes,
have
mine,
planned?
yeah.
So you will have, your carports are gonna face each other. So that neighbor shouldn't have any problems. On the other side, just don't wanna approve a situation where a neighbor in the future is gonna have trouble. That's just my only concern.
But David, you're using the same footprint you said as what you already have, the same base?
The current footprint that
Yeah.
the building's on,
Yeah,
I'm gonna tear the foundation out or the concrete, the foundation, because there's cracks
Yeah.
but basically I wanna build it,
same thing,
the same footprint as what
Yeah.
I've got now, so.
right.
And I talked to my neighbor on the east over the weekend and, made sure she got her letter that I sent to her. She was on vacation the whole month of July. Didn't get back till August 1st, so I didn't get a chance to talk to her. But I saw her over the weekend and made sure she got my letter, certified letter, she did. And told her about the meeting tonight, and in fact, she's been talking about building a building there, for the last 20 years also, so.
Well, I would note your garage has been there for an awful long time.
It's just poorly, I guess that's the way they constructed garages back then, but it's poorly built. There's no studs. You got 4 corner posts, one single 2x4 goes across around the center, one that goes up, and it's just, over time, it's kind of leaning a little bit. Like I said, I think the only thing that's kept it up is the attachment of the carport on the side.
Yeah, well, we've had this situation before. I can remember one where a guy needed a variance because he had a 6-foot existing foundation and it was a foot or whatever away from the lot line. Happens an awful lot down here. But your certain for the record that you know where your lot line is. And you base that on
Pardon?
knowing, you based your knowledge on seeing some kind of a marker where your lot line is?
Yeah.
Okay. 'Cause I
And
hate to give
my lot's 38 feet wide. And, on the, drawing that I submitted, my current garage is 18 feet wide. I want to extend it probably to 22 feet wide. And, if I go with too much of a setback on each side, then that's going to squeeze me down, significantly, the width of the garage, the width of the carport. So, you know, that's what you get into in downtown with
exactly, we've seen
small
this
lot sizes.
many times. Are there any other questions or comments, board members?
You have some utilities out there, David, like electric, you run electric?
Pardon?
You have any kind of utilities other than electric?
The only utility is gas line and, my sewer line that runs underneath,
Okay,
underneath my carport presently. And when I think when I tear the concrete out, I think I'm gonna maybe go ahead and replace, especially the sewer line,
okay.
put a new sewer line in. 'Cause with my luck, if I don't, 6 months later, I'll have a leak.
That's right. Good idea, good
So,
idea, David.
I'm gonna try to do a little preventive,
don't-
work there
Don't
and replace it.
don't test fate, right? Don't test it, okay. Good idea, Dave.
But the gas line, there's gas line and the sewer line runs down the alley, but we shouldn't
Okay.
affect any of that, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, board members? Would anybody in the audience like to speak for or against this application? Well, then I guess you can have a seat, sir, and we'll go through our findings of fact. And of course, this is a variance from developmental standards. Number one, will approving this application be injurious to public health, safety, morals, general welfare? Mr. Acosta.
No, not in any way.
Mr. Ferris.
No, I don't believe it will be.
Mrs. Burkhart.
No, I don't see a problem with any of those.
Mr. Eaglin.
I do not see a problem.
And rebuilding a structure on the same footprint that's already been there for decades, I don't think that's going to harm the general welfare. Number two, will this hurt the use and value of adjacent properties adversely? Mr. Acosta.
No, I think, to the contrary, it will, having a new building there will, improve that.
Mr. Ferris.
I agree with those comments from Mr. Acosta.
Mrs. Burkhart.
I too agree with those comments.
Mr. Eaglin.
Yes, I agree with the comments.
And we have had certainly no testimony from any recognized authority that such a bad thing would happen, so I see no problem there. Number three, strict application results in practical difficulties in the use of the property. Mr. Acosta.
Yes, it would, not only not allow to rebuild it, it would actually negate the use of the current structure.
Mr. Ferris.
Yeah, I agree with those comments. I mean, strict enforcement kills the project.
Mrs. Burkhart.
Yeah, I agree with that comment.
Mr. Eaglin.
I agree with those comments.
The practical difficulty amounts to, first, making modern standards really not usable in an old standard property. And it would necessitate, I think I'll stop there. I think that one's met. Well, we've gone through our three criteria. Therefore, I move that we grant this request for a 1 foot setback from the east lot line and a 1 foot setback from the west lot line as in applicant's request. That's my motion.
Rick Ferris,
Yes.
Nancy Burkhart,
Yes.
Mark Acosta,
Yes.
Scott Baldwin,
Yes.
Carl Eagle.
Yes.
Well, sir, you have your variance.
Thank you, Board.
We wish you well.
Thank you.
Third item on the agenda, BZVD '24 39, Ryan Rogers, requesting a variance from developmental standards for setbacks to allow constructing an addition at the rear of the property at 917 West First Street, Historic District Residential. And yes, sir, if you could give your name and address for the record?
Sure. Ryan Rogers, 804 East First Street, Madison.
And could you explain to the board what you want to do?
I'm representing Mr. and Mrs. Slofer that recently purchased the property. We need to bring the existing house into conformity. It sets close to the lot line on both sides as it's indicated in the drawing. And then he wants to extend the house back 20 feet.
Well, that's a pretty good summary, and I got the impression that from your data you submitted, that the west side of the extension is going to be in line with the west side of the house.
That's correct.
So you don't want the house to come in and then a zigzag,
Well, the west side will be straight.
will be straight.
The east side does step in, and the reason is somebody's enclosed the porch at some point. And to get a room that has a flat ceiling, I've got to bring the wall over enough to make that work. And then I'm actually going to turn the pitch of the roof the other way and tie into it, so the house looks like it's supposed to be that way.
Therefore, you're requesting a 2-foot east lot line, 2-foot west lot line. And that's basically what you're asking for.
Yes.
I can't help but ask, do your clients know what they're getting into?
As far
They
as
want to
building,
build in what's called Zone AE, as doubtlessly you know. It's sort of, it's not the floodway, but it's the flood fringe. And there's all kinds of rules in Madison's 3-2015 flood hazard ordinance about building, how you have to build the house, and things have to be above the flood, the FPG, the floodplain grade, which is 2 feet above the base flood boundary, which I understand is 463 feet, which is 465. And I have a question for staff. Why is that 463 and not 475? Because the 1937 flood was 475 feet.
Those elevations are set by FEMA when they map, so they mapped in 2015.
Right, with that NA something or another 88. So that's what they decree as the base flood elevation,
Correct.
which I think comes from the 1893 flood or something, but anyway.
Mr. Slofer is, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, that's all right.
I was going to say, Mr. Slofer has tasked me with making sure that everything gets approved, so he was smart about it. He doesn't have to worry about it.
Well, I just hoped he wasn't a new resident in Madison that has never seen an Ohio River flood.
He's very aware of the property and what the potential flood is. Actually, the house is going to be built on masonry piers. It'll be similar to a basement, but it'll have open areas underneath of it. So it won't have the possibility of creating a problem when it floods.
Sure.
And Mike Prickett lives right next door to him, and I believe Mike's going to do the work for him. So we've got expertise involved in the project.
Well, that was a big concern of mine, because I walked down and I took a good look at all those houses. And a couple houses to your east is an old decrepit garage, which I wondered, why is that one not cut loose? And then east of him is a very beautiful stone structure. But I just couldn't help but wonder, you know what you're getting into, but I guess you do. Any questions or comments, board members?
None here.
None.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak for or against this application? Well, in that case, one last chance, board members. Well, it's obvious, sir, you know you gotta get the necessary flood permits and whatnot. And you're fortunate it's only Madison and not DNR or the federal government or somebody. We will go through our three criteria. This is a variance from developmental standards. And it involves requested setbacks of 2 feet east lot line and 2 feet west lot line are requested, and the other lot lines are not relevant. So that's what we're deciding. So number one, will this be injurious to the public health, safety, et cetera? Mr. Acosta?
No, simply, approving, an existing condition on the building already.
Mr. Ferris?
No, I don't believe it will be.
Mrs. Burkhart?
No, I don't see a problem with any of those.
Mr. Eaglin?
No, it should be good.
Having listed testimony of how the house is gonna be constructed and the fact that it's gonna have to be constructed to Madison's flood hazard ordinance standards, I think that one is met. Number two, will this substantially harm the use and value of adjacent properties? Mr. Acosta?
No, I think it will actually be an improvement in improving the entire property, so, the adjacent areas will benefit from that.
Mr. Ferris?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Acosta's comments.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I too agree with that.
Mr. Eaglin?
Yes, I agree. No harm.
The biggest harm would come from a flood washing the thing into somebody else's property. I do not see a high likelihood of that when following Madison's construction rules for floodplain construction. Number three, strict application of terms of the zoning ordinance results in practical difficulties in the use of the property. Mr. Acosta, what are they?
Yeah, just, as we mentioned in the previous application, it'd restrict them from, doing any upgrades, but, also would keep the, current structure non-compliant.
Mr. Ferris?
Yeah, strict application would prevent the upgrade of the property and, I guess the substantially, adverse part of this situation is just, the old or lack of zoning, back when the property was built.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree with the prior comments.
Mr. Eaglin?
I agree.
The practical difficulties? It's a narrow lot, for one, which was laid out in the 19th century by their standards. Modern standards are different. And I think that is the practical difficulty that's involved. So I think that one's met. So therefore, I move that we approve this variance from developmental standards to allow 2 feet from the west lot line, 2 feet from the east lot line, subject to the following provision, that all construction must conform to Madison's flood hazard area ordinance number 3-2015. And second, failure to comply with it will disqualify any building permit issuance. And let me explain a bit. It's no aspersion on anybody, but building in the floodplain can set up such a can of worms that I am putting that language in there to help protect any future board if they need it. That's what I have done. So we have a second.
I'll second.
Can we have a roll call?
Rick Ferris,
Yes.
Nancy Burkhart,
Yes.
Mark Acosta,
Yes.
Scott Baldwin,
Yes.
Carl Eaglin.
Yes.
Well, sir, you have your variance. Next item on the agenda, BZCU 24-56, Carolina and Ken McKinley. Conditional use permit for single-family residence to be used as a short-term rental, 1328 West Second, Historic District Residential. Yes, ma'am. You could give your name and address for the record, explain the board what you want to do.
Sure. My name is Carolina McKinley. My husband and I reside at 1229 West Main Street. We own the property 1328 West Second Street that we are talking about tonight. We bought it at the time when we purchased 1229 with the idea of utilizing it as an extension to our current family for when we have my grandparents in town and family in town to stay with us. But in the occasion that we aren't having family, we'd like to use it as an Airbnb. We purchased the property as a fully functional Airbnb, but that's not my intention because it is part of my home. And again, I'll have my grandparents staying there for a month or 2 months at a time. But when it's not in use, I'd like to use it as an Airbnb.
Right, that property, board members, many of you will remember, is adjacent to 1229 West Main, which is that famous Civil War era hospital building that was rezoned for use as an Airbnb because of various, we run into these zoning problems. And your house was originally part of that, but it's not anymore. I personally, the only thing concerns me as a board member is noise and parking. Because we have dozens upon dozens of Airbnbs in Madison now, and I've really only heard one complaint in this meeting, or these meetings. So you've submitted some house rules. Your house rule, 2 to 4 space parking available on the property. That's ample parking for anything you have in mind. So I would ask you, your next sentence is please no parking on the street. I would strike out please and say no parking is allowed on the street. We ask for no events or gatherings be held in the cottage. Should be no more than 6 people. I would rephrase that to say no more than 6 people are allowed. Because if you say should be, you may have 40. Not that you would, but it's, the reason we got this board is to protect people, protect neighbors, protect everybody's property values, to try to keep chaos from breaking loose in our little town. So I think that, please me, that sentence should say no more than 6 people may stay at the cottage at a time. And your next sentence, all of whom need to be registered and accounted for on Airbnb. I suspect that gives staff, does that make it easier for these rules to be enforced when they say that? Does that give some legal muscle to,
Yes, because there's additional rules that aren't included on there that are required by Airbnb, that they likely put on Airbnb that she probably didn't even include on there.
so we should include a sentence that say, follow, something to the effect, follow all rules of Airbnb in addition.
I don't even think that's necessary, because that's probably what they're using anyway.
Okay. So I propose, for second sentence, say, no parking is allowed on the street. Please lock all car doors. It's okay. We ask there be no smoking or vaping inside or out. We could make that one stronger, no smoking outside of the college, or outside of the cottage. Board members, do you think that's necessary?
I'd be hesitant to do that.
No, I don't think it is.
Okay, then we won't say that. We can strengthen our sentence. We ask for no events or gatherings. Could strengthen that to say, no events or gatherings are to be held by renters or. Any problems with that one, board members?
No, no, that's appropriate.
Are allowed by renters. Once again, ma'am, that's no spurring on you, but we don't want rock concerts.
That makes two of us.
And I have learned bitterly that unless the law says something, it will be pushed. And you say all of whom, well, I'll just change that, all guests need to be, must be registered and accounted for on Airbnb, pets are not allowed. Quiet times from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Board members, do you think 9 a.m. is better? Because I think frequently we said 10 p.m. to 9 a.m. That's my proposal. So, once more, what I propose for the submitted rules, 2 to 4 space parking available on property. No parking is allowed on the street. Please lock all doors. That sentence. We ask there be, we'll just leave that one. We ask there be absolutely no smoking or vaping inside or outside cottage. No events or gatherings are allowed by renters. And on the property, no more than 6 people may stay at the cottage at a time. Guests must be registered and accounted for on Airbnb. Pets not allowed. Quiet times from 10 p.m. to 9 a.m. That's the way I propose the rules read.
I thought we decided they could smoke outside. We weren't gonna address that, smoking outside.
No, that's why I left her statement as
Okay.
she,
I misunderstood.
as she
Okay.
put it. No change to that statement. Board members, any other question or any other comments on my proposed changes?
Well, I would ask maybe the applicant if that's acceptable to her.
That's perfect to me.
Okay.
Well, that's my concern, as like I've said, board members, my concern is parking and noise. The rest of it, not concerned. Any other questions or comments about any aspect of this, board members?
None here.
And I will ask if anyone in the dwindling audience has anything to say for or against. Okay, you can be seated, ma'am.
Thank you.
And staff members, did you get what I said about the rules?
I got it.
Well, this is a conditional use permit. And I think we'll just go through this because this seems rather straightforward. Because we have so many Airbnbs, she has a set of rules. I'll just go through each one and I'll ask if any of you have any objections, if that's all right with your board members.
Perfect. Sure.
So number one, this will be conditional use number 581. Number one, is that the right use?
Agreed.
Correct.
Yes.
Number two, this is with, harmonious with the zoning ordinance comprehensive plan.
Yes.
Any objections?
Yes.
Nope.
No issue.
You all think it's okay? Number three, harmonious, appropriate in appearance with the area.
Yes.
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 All approved. Number four, not hazardous or disturbing to neighboring uses
Yes.
Correct.
With house rules.
with house rules. Number five, this is utilities adequate.
Yes.
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 All agree. Number six, not detrimental to economic welfare of the community.
Agreed.
No.
Correct.
All agree.
Yes.
All, that one's okay. Number seven, excessive production of traffic noise, smoke, fumes, glare, odors.
No issue.
No.
No
issue.
problem.
No issues, and I agree with the rules. Number eight, this does not interfere with traffic.
No.
No, that's not.
I agree, not an issue. And number nine, this is about loss of historic features and so forth.
No issue.
Should comply.
And I think it probably helps preserve them. I move we approve this conditional use for a period of 1 year, contingent upon enforcement of house rules as amended, as changed in the board meeting and submitted to staff.
Second.
And can we have a roll call?
Rick Ferris,
Yes.
Nancy Burkhart,
Yes.
Mark Acosta,
Yes.
Scott Baldwin,
Yes.
Carl Eagle.
Yes.
Ma'am, you have your conditional use. We wish you welcome and well. There is no old business. Staff members, is there anything I've left out? Well, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.